Welcome to the AU Scoop. I'm your host, Philip Dukes, aka DukestheScoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at DukestheScoop. And please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. All right, guys, I know it's been a while. Hasn't been a lot of Auburn content on my channel lately, but we're going to change that as we start to ramp up our efforts across the board. As you know, I have a partnership going with AuburnUndercover.com with a 24/7 sports network. So you can go to Auburn Undercover's page, go check that out. Make sure you go sign up for a subscription. But one of my brothers at Auburn Undercover, Christian Clemente, who is one of the most tapped in people when it comes to Auburn recruiting, about 5-6 days ago, he comes out with his mock class 1.0. Christian is usually really spot on with these, as you can't predict the entire class, especially months and months ahead of time. But you're going to see numerous names that you'll see back and forth in the recruiting cycle. And from that perspective, let me get my camera right. But from that perspective, this is probably a good exercise in just understanding where Auburn boards sit. Some of what he done, what he has written, I was able to flesh out and go kind of see some and talk to recruits, as well as people in Auburn. And even since then, you'll see some movement on the board, basically, with and this is going to be a two-part thing because I'll drop a kind of a primer for official visit weekend starting this weekend. They got a ton of guys coming to campus, so this is we'll call this recruiting update part one. But so let's get into it. So number one on the list, this and I'm going to talk about where I think Auburn needs to really, what parts of the class they need to firm up. Um, so Travis Burgess is predicted to be like your Auburn quarterback one. Tom Lloyd, really big time guy, 24/7 feels like. Travis Burgess is Auburn's to lose. North Carolina, NC State involved. To me, he's basically Deuce Knight all over again. Um, Same size, just about 6'5", 200 pounds when you were recruiting Deuce Knight last year. Athleticism similar. I think where Deuce Knight may be a little further along is going to be where he is as a passer. But when you talk about a developmental guy who could give you a lot of high end potential, probably could steal some snaps early on just based off his athleticism. A winner as Grayson is Grayson shocked a lot of people last year about winning the state championship in Georgia, defeating Carrollton, and helps you out with Tyler Atkinson as Auburn continues to recruit TA. I think this is I would say this is probably a sure bet. Let me take that back. Not a sure bet, but I think this is probably the surest bet. Clemente always also mentioned Landon Duckworth as well as a potential recruit. And there's going to be more guys, and I'm going to say this a million times during this video. There'll be more and more guys. And I would agree with him here. Running back. This is where I feel like Auburn may have missed a few opportunities. But I think they'll finish strong. So there's three main guys. You got Jay Lamar from Colquitt County, South Georgia. Derek Cooper from Chaminade, Madonna, the home of Sean Shivers. If you go look early on this playlist, I got a great interview with Auburn legend. I call him a legend. Sean Shivers, aka Worm, who's his running back coach. And then you got EJ Crowell, who reclassified. So you got those three guys. Those are your main three. Now there are some guys that I felt like Auburn may have recruited a little harder earlier on. We'll talk about those names. But right now, Jay Lamar, everybody thinks he's Georgia's to lose. Where we are, Derek Cooper, same thing. Georgia, I'm leaning a little towards Miami right now. And then they say EJ Crowell is basically Alabama's to lose. But they made some progress here that we'll talk about as you're going to get right now. I know you got at least two of those three planning official visits this weekend, so that's a really good sign. But you got to have that bell cow. You like right now when you look at where Auburn is in the running back room, you got Damari Austin, you got Jeremiah Cobb, who's a junior. You got a senior, a junior, and then you got Darrell Robinson. You got Alvin Henderson, who's a smaller back, and I think he's a good back, but he's just a smaller back. You're gonna need a guy with some size to pair with him. Two guys that Auburn started out early on, but they kind of fizzled. That I thought that I was like, man, they would be great fits at Auburn. Were Amari Latimer out of Sandy Creek and Carson Baker out of Langston Hughes. I think now those ships have kind of sailed a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised though to see Auburn get back in it with Amari Latimer towards, based on how it goes this weekend. Amari Latimer seems to be a guy that Auburn right now. His brother's at Wisconsin, G Latimer. So I think that you could see Auburn get back in that battle. So that's another name I would monitor. Eric Perry, the athlete, plays quarterback out of is it Mississippi or Texas? Hold on, let me make sure. Okay, so I think the confusion on Eric Perry was he's from DeSoto Central, so I'm thinking DeSoto out of Texas, but he is from Mississippi. But he plays quarterback, and I think that's going to be a thing. Like if he's willing to play running back, I think Auburn is going. And a lot of schools are going to like him at running back. But I think if he has the type of senior year that some people think he's capable of, you're going to see him continue to get offers at quarterback, and I think that's going to be a problem. So, two names but I think definitely Amari Latimer. If you strike out with your first three, I think Amari Latimer is a guy that you could possibly circle back on, and there's some more guys that we'll see as the class continues. So, wide receiver, I think you've done a great job so far. You can't really be upset with the wide receiver. With the wide receiver recruiting so far, you got Denarius Gray, who continues to blow up, committed, and Devin Carter out of Douglas County, another guy, that's really influential here in Atlanta. So I think those two guys make up a really good starting base for that class. Now, Auburn is kind of doing their wide receiver university thing right now, right? Where you look at, I think that Auburn has the best wide receiver core top to bottom in the country. I mean, in 1 to 6, absolutely. Sorry. I think you don't have the depth. I mean, even really 1 to 8. I just feel like Auburn has the deepest class in the country. But going forward, you still got to bring more guys in to keep that continuity going, especially with the transfer portal. So I think when you got a Devin Carter, and Denarius Gray, you got to continue to recruit these guys. Gray is a guy who really has a chance to continue to blow up. He's already ranked highly, but people are falling in love with him by the day, and you got to try to keep him from the grasp of Miami and Florida. Marquez Daniels, another guy, and Jace Matthews is the other one. Daniel is a guy who Auburn has kind of been up and down on, but I just think athletically, you don't have a guy like this in the class right now. I mean, 6'6". I mean, I think 6'5", 6'6". Just a really freakish athlete that I think Auburn was kind of like on the fence on for a minute, but they picked it up. And then you got Jace Matthews, who's another guy who really just his athleticism has set him apart, and now he's blowing up. Not sure if you get all four of those guys, but I think those top three, if I had to predict out of those four, I think you get Marquez Daniel and Devin Carter for sure. If I had to make a crystal ball, I would say those two guys. And Jace Matthews is just going to be about how hard you go after him. And we'll see how the board shakes out. At tight end, Caden Prothro and Xavier Tiller. Of those two, I think Xavier Tiller is probably the more realistic of the two. And not to say that Auburn doesn't have a chance with Prothro, but I just don't see Prothro leaving the university. I mean, leaving Georgia. That's going to be one of those hard ones, bro. There's some other guys out there that I think possibly that you'll see Auburn circle back on who may not be as dynamic. there's a sleeper that you see in Auburn. Like, there's going to be a guy that I think you should see official visit come out for soon. That's in Atlanta. That is a real tweener wide receiver. And if this guy chooses to play tight end or chooses to get recruited at tight end, you can see that pick up with Auburn. Just out of respect for the class, I'll leave that one until I get clearance on dropping that name. But Auburn does have some guys in the mix at the tight end room that they feel like can do a little more, that could be a little more dynamic than what they may have in the room now. Offensive line, that's what everybody wants to talk about. So the class that my boy CC has is Parker Pritchett, Dalton Toothman, T-Ron Richardson, Wilson Zierr, the little brother of Killian Zierr, Deron Parks, and Claude Mpuma. All right. I think that you get I think Parker Pritchett's already committed. I think he's Auburn's to keep. 6'5", 310 pounds, right out of the Columbus area. Not supremely highly ranked, 3-star guy, but he has the size that you want early on. This is going to be one of those classes where if you see Auburn right now, none of these guys that we're listing right now have blue chip status. They're all 3 stars, 4 stars, but that doesn't mean that that you won't get blue chip production. You got to get guys in. I think of all of these guys that I just named, probably the most high-end guy is Wilson Zierr. We saw what his brother did. He's out there at Raven Gap. They play good football out there. They play a national schedule. So, yeah, I think right now it's hard to say what Auburn really has on the offensive line when you think about commitments. Not commitments. Where they're really planning on going. I think it's real early in the class, and I think that you're going to continue to see evaluations. So, just because you don't see a ton of high-end talent being talked about right now doesn't mean that it isn't coming. But this is another one of those positions where Auburn has to really buckle down. And we say it every year. That you're getting a guy here, you're getting a guy there, but you really want to go get a couple of really trady guys. I say this, Claude and Pullman, and forgive me that I'm saying his name is wrong. He's one of those athletic guys that you want at offensive tackle that I think that it may be a tough pull for you, but if you can make that one happen, he's the type of guy that you really will love to get in the class and watch him develop because he does have the athleticism. Right now, they got him ranked as the number 20 offensive tackle in the nation. When you go to national composite, they got him 15. So, yeah, I think it's just that Midwest is going to be tough, but I do know he wants to play in the SEC, and he's going to be one of those guys that blows up. And at the end of the cycle, you're looking like, man, we had no idea we were getting this type of blue chip talent when we recruited him earlier. But I think Zierr is going to be is a guy that you really need in the class, even though he doesn't have like 5-star status. He's a guy that you can win, man. I think when you have 2 guys who are athletically gifted, as in Puma and Zierr. You got one guy who's developing, and Puma's a basketball player, basically only been playing for a couple of years. So I think, but when you look at his high-end traits and his strength, that's where you'll see some of that, why he's being ranked so highly now. Defensive line, another position. Now, this is why I'm not as worried about D-line. You just got, if you hold on to what you got last year out of the D-line room, I think that's the best D-line haul I've ever seen in Auburn. Maybe outside of I don't maybe outside of Derek Brown, Marlon Davidson. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% positive. Somebody check that for me to see if those guys were in the same class. But last year was the best I've seen in a long time. When you talk about Malik Autry, gonna play. Jordan Crawford is gonna play. Jared Smith is going to play. You got 3 freshman guys that'll probably end up on your 2 deep, and that's hard to say in the SEC. And not just because Auburn doesn't have guys. You still got Keldrick Falk, Keyron Crawford. You got guys who can play buck. You got guys who play different positions. Like, you just got some ballers. So I'm not as worried about this class, but you want to keep them coming in. Rodney Cleveland is a guy who I think in the long run, who Christian said he thinks it will be in the class in the long run, but right now Auburn has kind of been up and down. Cleveland is another one of those guys who he reminds me of Malik Blockton, where he's a true tweener. Like, is he a 0? Is he a 3? Is he a 5? Is he tall enough to play the 5? You know, can he keep people off of him at the point of attack? Does he have enough length up for long arm? Like, but I'm just telling you, sometimes you just got to get football players. And Auburn has been really good at that, and that's a guy that I think Auburn really needs to go after hard to get in the class. Corey Wells, he's that 6'5", 200, 295, 300-pound guy that you want to see. I think Mississippi State, they are going crazy about him right now. That's where he already has the OV scheduled there. But he's a guy that Auburn is kind of he hasn't visited yet, but he's a guy that you'll see Auburn press on. Shout out to Christian for being early on that. I just don't think, like, you won't see at this point. It's another one of those things where you want to see more. You just don't see the high end guys, the blue chippers, but that doesn't mean, like, when you look at the totality of the class, when you continue to put these 4-star guys together who have great traits, who've played a lot of good football, that's how you build an SEC champion. Guys that you could keep, right? So if you go back and you look at the class, if you ask, would you know, when Malik Blockton was a 3-star, did he play like one? So for sure, I think there is a little bit to be desired left on that class, especially with the splash that you made last year. I think they'll be fine. And if you include the edges, you think about Hezekiah Harris, when you signed his older brother, as Christian pointed out, Malachi out of the transfer portal, I think that helps you with Harris. But yeah, Harris is a guy, really freaky, 6'5", 220. Gives me a little Jared Smith, but man, he's got more twitch, man. Really twitchy athlete. So he's a guy out of Anderson, Alabama that you got to keep. That when I say got to keep in this class, like, you really, when you got that commitment, there wasn't a lot of fanfare, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a big get. That was huge. So you got to keep him in the class. Another guy that you like, that Christian likes, is Trent Henderson, who's already getting recruited by Coach Rock. Man, shout out to Coach Rock, man. I think Coach Rock is probably one of the more under appreciated guys on this staff. Coach Rock does a great job, recruits love him, man. And he pairs well with the off-field staff. Like, everybody loves that guy. So shout out to Coach Rock, man. You're going to see Auburn try to get back involved with Tank Jones. I think he'll be on an official, and we're going to drop the video with my man Jason Caldwell, where he got a lot of the official visits. And if you want to go get this stuff first, this is just an analysis. If you want to go get this stuff first, just go make sure you go get a subscription to auburnundercover.com for sure. All right, so, but I like where you stand with the edge rushers. You're going to get it. You'll see more coming in, but Auburn's going to dip into Mississippi for sure. Linebackers, where I think that right now you got two guys, in Shadarius Tootle and JaMychal Garrett. J. Mike Garrett, I'm not sure if he'll be in the class. Tootle is going to be tough too. Jaquez Wilkes right now isn't committed, but he's a guy that Auburn is crazy about. I think he may be more of an edge rusher. So I just think you could do so much with him. Not far away. Been a guy who's been balling since the 8th grade. Maybe closer to 6'3", 215 to 6'4", 220, but I just think he's an edge. I think, but you can stand him up. He runs well, so that's a guy that if you can get him in the class, pair him with Tootle, you'll be fine. But I think what Auburn needs to get, and this is another place, you got to go back and get you a traditional Mike that can run. You need one Auburn linebacker. We haven't seen one in a minute, just that traditional guy. You've been getting a lot of transfers in. You need a born and bred Auburn backer. And I think this is one of those classes where you got to fill that in. And I think they'll be fine there. But yeah, for sure, man. I think if anything, what I want to see in this class is Auburn go after a thumper in the middle that can run. I know that sounds like, oh yeah, well, I just go ask for Takeo Spikes all over again. No, but you want to enforce in the middle of the field, especially when you got a great defensive line in front of you. You want one of those guys. You look at what Georgia's been able to do with their linebacker cores, and uh, to a slightly lesser extent, but still really good. Tennessee getting some real running hit guys that can provide support on read option to make the quarterback think twice. I think that's what Auburn has been missing in that defense. I think on the back end, you've been outstanding. I think up front, you've been actually good. You got to go back and get that thumper, man. So now cornerback, there wasn't a lot of information in the mock draft on corner, but I think you got to be good at corner. There's only one guy right now that Kristen had predicted, which was Preston Ashley, which I think he's a good guy. But just not a lot at corner. This is one of those red alert positions for me, not just because there's a lot of information, but because when you look at what Auburn already has and Can Lee, he's a junior. He could lead this year, even if people don't think he had the best year. When you talk about being a slot corner, NFL traits, I mean, right now, I know for a fact that Can Lee is looked at as a mid-round guy. So, I mean, he can improve on his stat, and if he shows – if he has a better year on the outside, man, you can see Can Lee fly out boards. And Jay Crawford is a guy who, after this year, you only get one more year of. He looks to be a guy who could leave early too, freshman All-American. So you need to get another corner, and you don't want to continue to just have to get guys out of the portal once again. So I think this is a room where you want to see Auburn really step it up. There's been some good. Since this was published, there have been some moves and some guys who potentially play safety that could play corner. So just continue to monitor that. But cornerback is one of those red alert positions where, like, hey, Auburn's got to pick it up. So right now, my biggest positions and that safety, man, you got two. So CC had Jared Edwards and Braylon Womack, the number 1 and number 3 safeties in the country, both committing to Auburn. I think that's I would say that's a little optimistic, but I think you can get one of them. And two, this is a position where you've seen Auburn really been able to get a lot out of lately. When you think about like a guy like Caleb Harris, but when you think about Eric Winters and Anquan Fagans, you've got guys where you're kind of set up pretty well for the future. When you think about the youth movement, and Auburn's been traditionally good on the back end at finding guys. So I think, and we know when it came to signing guys, see, this is what you don't want. You don't want those Auburn top 10 classes where you're ranked highly, but the team doesn't perform because you get 2-3 guys in the same position group. Like, yeah, you go get 2 top 10 safeties, that's going to boost your ranking really high. But how does it help your team when you're not doing well in the trenches? So if Auburn wants to return to prominence and they want to keep their recruiting momentum going the way they've had it, you got to close on 2 positions that are going to make you better. Offensive line, you got to get some guys. Linebacker, you need that traditional thumper. You need somebody to quarterback the defense for the future. You got to get some corners. So we look to see what Auburn does with it. I got a follow-up video that I'll post for your recruiting updates. And as always, man, make sure you go check out Auburn Undercover. And shoot, man, like and subscribe, man. I appreciate you guys' time. And shoot, man, drop a comment and let me know what else you want to talk about. It's not just recruiting. Whatever you want to talk about in Auburn, drop it in the comments. If you want to talk about what somebody else is talking about, let's do it. All right, man. All right, I appreciate it.